In 2003, in Rotterdam West, on a street called the Schiedamseweg, there was a hairdresser named Nathaniel Gomez. Everyone called him Tati. Most days he ordered lunch from the shawarma shop next door, a place called Ella Viva, and he had them build him something specific, a layer of fries at the bottom, shawarma meat piled on top of that, cheese melted over the whole thing under the grill, then salad, garlic sauce, and sambal on top. It had no name. So when the staff took the order, they just said it was the usual for the hair salon. The Dutch word for hair salon is Kapsalon. That's it. That's the whole naming story. The most beloved late-night food in the Netherlands is named after a barber shop because nobody could be bothered to invent a word for it. Today that thing costs about 10 euros. It used to cost a fraction of that. So what happened? Let's take it apart. Ask anyone why, and you get one of two answers. Greed or just inflation. Both are fair guesses. Greed feels right, because the plate is fries and meat and you can see roughly what that's worth. Inflation feels right because everything got more expensive, so why not this? But neither answer survives contact with the actual numbers. And the real answer is more interesting than either of them, because it explains something about every small food business you've ever walked into, not just this one. Start with food cost, because it's the number the whole industry runs on. In a snack bar or a friture, the target food cost sits between 22 and 30%. That's the benchmark for a healthy margin, not a target for gouging anyone. Just the number where the business survives. Do the arithmetic out loud. On a 10 euro Kapsalon, that means roughly 2 to 3 euros of actual food. Meat, cheese, potatoes, sauce, the lot. Everything on the plate, which means 7 to 8 euros of what you hand over is not food at all. Here's what that means. People argue about ingredient prices because ingredients are the part they can see. The meat has a price, the cheese has a price, you can picture them, but ingredients are the smallest part of the bill. So the question isn't why the food got expensive. The question is what the other 7 euros is paying for. Quick one before we go on. What's the equivalent late-night food where you live, and what did it cost 5 years ago versus now? Genuinely curious what the numbers look like outside the Netherlands. Now, energy. A snack bar is, physically, a room full of machines holding oil at high temperature all day long. That's the business. Not a kitchen that heats up when an order comes in, but fryers that sit hot from opening to closing, whether anyone walks in or not. So here are the numbers. The average energy bill for a Dutch cafeteria went from 17,336 euros in 2021 to 41,591 euros in 2022. That's a 140% increase in a single year. Put it monthly because it lands harder that way. A normal neighborhood snack bar went from about 1,200 euros a month for gas and electricity to over 3,600. That wasn't only them. Across the economy, prices for electricity, gas, steam, and heat rose 60% in 2021, then another 134% in 2022. And here's the detail that makes it worse. According to ProFry, 73% of cafeterias fell outside the government's energy support scheme entirely. Nearly 3/4 of them absorbed it alone. The consequence showed up on the wall. Snack bar price lists rose 10 to 25% in 2023, and industry estimates said prices needed to go up 20% just to compensate. Now here's the part that breaks people's intuition. Energy spiked and then partly came back down. Wages don't come back down. Over roughly 2021 to 2026, the Dutch minimum wage rose by more than 40%. In the Horeca specifically, the hourly wage for a worker aged 20 or over went from 13.27 euros in 2024 to 14.06 in the first half of 2025. That's about 6%. The year before that, it rose 9.5%. And on top of that, the collective agreement added 2.5% in January 2025, another 1% in July, and another 2.5% in January 2026. Let's be fair and explicit about this. That is a good thing for the people doing the work. Standing over a fryer at 1 in the morning should pay properly. It is also, unavoidably, a cost that ends up in the price of the food. Both things are true at once, and pretending otherwise doesn't help anyone. Ingredients are the smallest slice, but they're real. Meat prices hit a record in April 2026, with beef up 17.7% year-on-year at farm level. Cooking oil never recovered from the Mediterranean drought of 2023 and 2024 and still runs 40 to 60% above where it sat in 2022. And frying itself carries a per-portion cost, roughly 15 to 25 cents per portion in oil and energy alone before you've paid for a single potato. Real money, just not the main event. Now here's what nobody mentions. A lot of Dutch people believe VAT on their food jumped from 9% to 21% on the 1st of January 2026. Plenty of websites say exactly that. It isn't true. The increase to 21% applied to loggies, hotel stays, and short-stay accommodation. Culture was originally included in the same plan and was later reversed. Food and drink in restaurants, cafes, and snack bars stayed at 9%. Where it has been all along. This one is worth knowing because it's the explanation people reach for most often, and it's the one that's wrong. So who's winning here? Nobody, as far as I can tell. Horeca prices at the end of 2025 sat about 25% above 2022, having risen roughly 1.5 times faster than general inflation. That sounds like operators doing well. They aren't. 2/3 of Dutch consumers now say prices in cafes and restaurants are much too high, and in the first half of the year, restaurant and cafe sales volume actually shrank 1.6%. Follow that through. The operator raised prices to survive costs they didn't choose. The customer responded by coming in less often. The margin didn't improve, the queue just got shorter. That's the structural point, and it isn't a moral one. This isn't a story about someone getting rich off you. It's a story about a small business passing through costs it had no say in, to a customer who can't absorb them either. Two people on opposite sides of a counter, both losing slowly. Which brings us back to the hairdresser. In 2003, a man wanted lunch and got a plate of fries with meat and cheese melted on top. Nobody designed it as a product. Nobody sat in a room and built a price around it. It was a favor from the shop next door with no name. 23 years later, that same plate costs about 10 euros, and only 2 or 3 of those euros are food. So here's the whole thing in one line. You're not paying for the food. You're paying for the room it's cooked in and the person cooking it, and those two things got a lot more expensive than the meat ever did. The thing to decide,